Alright guys, so what is a game design document, right? So this is really important. A lot of times when we're first starting out, we don't know this information, so we don't do it. And it's really good, we wanted to mention it to you guys because it's really important for everyone trying to get out there, make their own games, to know how to stay organized so they can achieve that goal. And one of those things is creating a game design document. And a game design document was termed as a living document. And the reason it's termed a living document is because this document never finishes being made. It's always changing, always updating throughout the entire process of you making the game. And the reason it exists is because, say you're not making a game by yourself, say you're working with 2, 3, 4, maybe even 10 people, all those people need to know what the final product needs to look like, and they need to know what's changing or what's going on in your mind. You know, nobody knows how the game is supposed to look or play except yourself and whoever you're working with. So the game design document helps you organize and break down the whole game so you don't forget essential things. For example, is it going to have a scoreboard? Is it going to have a leaderboard? Is it going to have like 2-player, 1-player? Is it first-person shooter? Is it a platformer? All this stuff goes into the game design document. You know, how many lives do you have in the game? How many levels are there? Do you have any bosses? Do you not have bosses? All this stuff goes into the game design document, and that's why it's considered a living document, because things change when you're producing a game. What you initially started with eventually may not work, and you may have to simplify, or may end up evolving a mind of its own and it becomes more complex. So you add those updates into this document so that your whole team can stay organized and your whole team knows what's going on. Because one of the worst things that happens is a lack of communication, and when that happens, you end up having all this like scatterbrain like stuff going on, and nothing's actually getting done, and then the game just kind of goes into this cloud of voidness and never gets done. All right, so it's good to stay organized with it.
I'm gonna give you two examples. One that you all definitely know about. If you don't, you should. And one that you're definitely not gonna know about, which was an example that happened to us. The first example is one you all know. I'm pretty sure everyone here has played Mass Effect. So, no doubt that the company BioWare, when they started the game for the very first time, they had what they called a living document. And as the game progressed into its sequels, they added new characters, they added bits to the story in the sequel that referenced the original game because things changed in the document. And then, a good example, when Mass Effect 3 came out and the entire internet exploded because no one liked the ending, they changed some things and they released a DLC. So that's an incredible example of a game design document because they reference back to the story, everything that was recorded. And the other example is when we were making some of the games, we realized that some of the team members were working on a stage that was no longer going to be part of the game. But the reason that they were working on this because they didn't reference back to the game design document because it was updated stating that this particular stage was not going to be in the game anymore. So that is how you keep everyone in line. Instead of having to get on the phone or email or trying to get in contact with a person and find out, hey, is this in, is this not in? You go back to the document because more than likely the changes are there and you just got to find the right information, and then you can do your work based off of that. That way you don't have to be chasing after people to find out if anything's changed or not. So that's an example of how a document is, in this case, living, but how it continues even after the game has been released. If it's a mobile game, it's through an update. If it's a big AAA title, it's through DLC.
Let me ask you guys, how many in the crowd are programmers or game developers? Okay, so we got about 5 or 6. Nice. How many already have released a game? Okay, we have like a half kind of thing. Okay, the reason why I'm asking that is because for programmers or even designers, the GDD is a very, very important document. Sometimes we take it for granted. Sometimes we do it at the beginning and we forget to look at it. Maybe 6 months later we realize, oh, I've been working on all this stuff and the producer removed it. Because it wasn't working in the scope of the game that you were trying to create. Moreover, as a programmer, the GDD will tell you what parts of the code you need to implement first and what things you can remove for later or superfluous, or maybe later on you figure out, hey, this thing that's in the GDD, it's kind of like additional fodder that we're adding to it. Maybe we should cut it up and remove it, add it for later. So it's a great guide for when you're trying to program or design your games in the long run. I can't stress that enough as a technical artist, because this is what I use to start my programming. On the way here we were talking about how my crazy brain thinks of, oh, let's program something on a white piece of paper. So which is kind of like a daunting task if you have nothing to base yourself from. And the GDD is the first document I go to. It's like, okay, I have a character, the character jumps. Okay, that's the first thing I'm gonna program. Spawn a character, make character jump. And then just progress your game in that direction.
I think it's crucial to keep that organized, because once the project is done and published, should your teams evolve, should more artists come on board, artist leaves and that back and forth, you can refer back to the document should you want to make a new version of the game or part 2 and go on to sequels. You can start there from scratch, and a person coming on board can see the history of how things came about and how the game has evolved to where it is now, and it keeps you organized in that sense.
On that note, we all know the whole people switching out on us on projects, right? Like we're trying to finish something and all of a sudden life happens and they can't keep working with us anymore. Yeah, that document is fantastic when you're trying to bring someone in new that doesn't know what's going on in the project, and you're already halfway through the project and you just need someone to pick up where the last person left off to help you finish. It's going to help them kind of understand your vision and be able to take over and continue and finish. Because one of the worst things, most frustrating things is that, say you have a programmer or an artist, because a lot of you guys tend to be programmers that are making these games, which is fantastic. And I know artists are hard to find sometimes. And you get an artist and then they can't finish with you, and you're like stuck there because you have all this code and you need art for it. You have all that pre-concept art that he did and everything in that document. When you do find another artist, it's like, look, I need it to look like this style. I need to, try to mimic this style and everything so we can keep consistency. And it's going to help them, instead of trying to describe to a person